All right. Good morning, folks. This is Hal Ginsberg Gets Halitics. I'm hoping I got this to work. This is a soft launch. Oh my gosh, it's actually working. I see myself on the Hal Ginsberg Morning Show. We're only, 46 minutes late. This is going to be an abbreviated program. It's 11:46 East Coast time. I am actually working part-time as well as doing this. And this may become a full-time gig for me, but obviously I want to iron out those bugs. Today we had a lot of them. I think I'm finally going though. I'm looking forward to it. If you want to join me, you can try 240-283-7262. I may or may not take your call right away. And nobody may be listening, right? If no one is hears me, then am I talking? It's kind of like that tree in the forest, right? So at some point, maybe someone who's actually, tuned in, maybe by accent. And I don't think there'll be a lot of folks because we're just in that Hal Ginsberg Morning Show group. And there's a good reason for that because I've been struggling like crazy, right? And I thought everything was going so well. I will get to the program in just a minute. I mentioned we're going to talk East Palestine. That's where there's a terrible, terrible train crash about 3 weeks ago. Little less than that, and the community was really devastated. A lot of evacuations were necessary because of the toxicity of the train cargo and the fire and the pollutions to the land there. So a lot of issues that are really being faced in the heartland there, just on the Pennsylvania line. And I hope my stream is working here. I'm not even sure. I'm going to mute it, or I guess it is muted. I want to just see if it's is it running? Yeah, it looks like I'm going. All right, 240-283-7262. And I put that oval there so you can see it as well. I think it's pretty legible, so it shouldn't be a problem. Let me get to some of our topics. And I want to start again in East Palestine, not Palestine, right? Not Israel, Palestine, but East Palestine, Ohio. And here is a Fox video. I think this is from 2 days ago. So today's Thursday. I think this is from, is today Thursday? Oh, I want you to see my little mouse. Why are you seeing? You shouldn't see that mouse. All right, here we go. Here's the video from Fox from a couple nights ago. And are we not here?
Hire me to, make him do what he said he's going to do. So,
all right. So what they're talking about real quick is and I'm just going to pause it for a moment. The CEO of Norfolk Central, the train line that derailed, where you had that terrible, terrible industrial accident. I'm just going to slide this up and down, try to get the right spot on my video. So the CEO of Norfolk Southern and I actually made a mental note to remember his name, and I forgot it. He has finally shown up, and they're very harshly critical of Norfolk Central, which through cost cutting obviously took risk, put the folks in wherever their train tracks are at great risk with all the dangerous chemicals, the petroleum that they ship in those mile-long trains. The derailment occurred. You can see the fire that resulted. And he has so far avoided going to East Palestine, Ohio. We've got the mayor and one of the residents there on this clip. So let's continue with it.
Well, if he does anything, and we'll blow it up. So
there's the Fox host, and I don't watch Fox. I had to use this video clip because this is where the mayor made a very I think important statement, a powerful statement, a meaningful statement. You may disagree with it. We're going to get to it. It's about the president of the United States, not the CEO of Norfolk Central. But I wanted to start earlier in the video because I don't want you to think that this video that Fox, which we all on the left tend to be vilified, tend to demonize. I didn't want you to get the attitude or the position that Fox was just propagandizing or using this train derailment to blast the Democrat, right? To blast Biden. In fact, to be fair, they are really going after the CEO, the corporate behemoth for what they did. And this is saying, hey, if he doesn't follow through. Now, who knows if they're going to really do this, right? But according to the host, if the Norfolk Southern Corporation does not follow through and take care of the people that it's wronged through its gross negligence, and you see again the fires, and you're going to see some earth being moved, that they're going to go after them. So who knows if that's true? The point is, I wanted there to be context that Fox isn't here just going after Biden. So let's continue with the video.
This guy, as I said, ran away, and then he came back. Was he surrounded by guys with AR-15s? He said he was fearful of his life. That's why he bailed on the first town hall.
No, I mean, he wasn't surrounded by anybody like that. I feel as if he came, as honest as he could. I wouldn't want to be in Alan's shoes. There's a lot of
yeah, that's his name. CEO's Alan. I'm going to turn that video down because I just want you to see all the work they're having to do to clean up this industrial disaster and all the harm. They're actually having to dig up a lot of the soil that was contaminated. And you can see it right there with that earth mover, that shovel. So this is, an extraordinary tragedy in the heartland there. And you're getting the report from Fox, and I give them credit for it, and they're also going after the CEO. So now let's get to the next section of this video. I want to see if I can get to it. I'm having a little trouble with the, I think this is it. So let's see if we can get this going here. So here we go.
You tell me, first of all, if he does anything, and we'll blow it up. So, Lenny...
So we already heard this part, so let me get to the next slide. So here we go. And this is where they discuss the president.
I got straight here. Before we go, I can repeat. He said, with the president being in Ukraine today, did that surprise you?
Absolutely, that was the biggest slap in the face. That tells you right now he doesn't care about us. So
Agreed.
He can send every agency he wants to, but I found that out this morning in one of the briefings that he was in Ukraine giving millions of dollars away to people over there, not to us, and I'm furious.
On President's Day in our country.
Yeah, President's Day.
Problems here. Let me see if I can tamp that down a little bit. There we go. That should be a little bit better. I don't know if it's fair to say that's the kind of guy President Biden is, to judge him based only on his failure to appear in Ukraine. I'm sorry, based on his failure to appear in East Palestine, Ohio, and his decision to go to Ukraine. I don't know if it's fair to judge him on that and say that's the kind of guy he is. I would say it's part of the story, but certainly not all of it. But it doesn't look good. Doesn't look like he's showing concern for the folks in our country. He's spending all that money in a country that isn't, why? What's that about? I honestly don't get that. And, Putin's an awful guy, right? He's horrible. And we should be, doing everything we can, in my opinion, to stop the Ukraine war. But we're not doing that. We're prolonging it. We're selling arms. We're giving arms. We're giving high-tech supplies, munitions, and it's prolonging a horrible war. Now, you get all the horror stories in the U.S. media. Everything that the Russian troops are doing, we're hearing about it, and it's terrible. And that's what war is. But we are not doing what we need to do to end this war, and it's incredibly frustrating from my standpoint for this reason. Who are we? Who are we to lord it over everyone else and say, yes, we get to decide who's moral and who's not, who's doing the right thing and who isn't? We have done terrible harm across the planet in the past 20, 25 years. And the arrogance that we get to decide, we get to know better. We know better what they need in Ukraine is absurd. Now, one of the, and I'm going to just go back to the slide deck in a second, but one of the arguments that those of us who are for peace have made is, Ukraine is corrupt. Ukraine is rife with neo-Nazis, and we shouldn't be helping them. It's two gangsters going at each other. Why are we involved? Why are we putting our thumb on the scale of Al Capone as opposed to, Jaime Weiss and the O'Donnell gang? And if you want to use Old Town Chicago, something like that. Why are we choosing one gangster over the other? They're all bad. Here's the response on Twitter when it was pointed out by, let's see, Trans Judeo Bolshevik. So this is a Twitter site for trans folks, Trans Jewish Bolshevik, and he or she or they, I should say, is making the point that the Russians and Ukrainians are both Jew haters. They're both part and parcel of 1,000 years of Jew hatred. And if you're Jewish, you can't say, oh, I'm an ally of Ukraine necessarily because, I hate bigotry or I hate totalitarianism, because we see fascism. And of course, the Ukrainians did greet the Nazis with flowers at first until the Nazis started lining them up against walls and shooting them, even those who weren't Jewish, some of them, in 1941. That said, the Ukraine at that time was clearly between a frying pan and a fire, Stalin on one side, Hitler on the other. So I'm not going to sit there and condemn Ukrainians for hoping that they would get something better from the Nazis, but there certainly is a neo-Nazi history in Ukraine. So Trans Judeo Bolshevik says they're both anti-Semitic. Ukraine has always been a violent place for Jews, no question about that. And so the response from Jared, who's someone I know, wait until you read about Russia's history of anti-Semitism. Of course, they're terrible too. And pogrom is a Russian word. And plus, his point, and I get it, is that the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, is in fact Jewish. So how anti-Semitic could they truly be if they elect a Jewish president? And of course, that's kind of to me, a ridiculous argument, because there are neo-Nazi elements that have power and influence in Ukraine, but they're not the majority, clearly. And they have more power and influence in some parts of the country rather than in others. They are absolutely in support of the war against Russia, or of defending Ukraine, all of Ukraine, to the last Ukrainian, rather than some type of peace with Russia. And we should be pushing for that peace, because Zelensky is corrupt, because he was installed by the United States, and because neo-Nazis are neo-Nazis. So they're not the good guys. There's no one with white hats in this conflict. They're all black hat wearers. We need to be pushing for peace. And my response is neo-Nazis and Zelensky are both fighting against Russia with American support. And Americans are assisting Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda is clearly terrorist. They're clearly not anybody that we should view as allies or freedom fighters or are on the side of democracy. But we're joining arms with them against Assad. I guess some people think that's all right. I'm not one of them. I guess some people do. All right, 240-283-7262. Oh, now someone says, oh, you are. Oh, now he's saying you're normal. Thank you, Peter. I'm glad I got it. I know we have been struggling. The tech is close. I am close, but there's a lot of balls in the air. That's why, again, soft launch, just trying to get this going as best we can. 240-283-7262. I'm not going to go too much longer. I can take your calls. Looks like someone texted me, and you can text me, but let's go to the next story. So why should we be? And look at that. It's sort of a weird, I'm not loving that. I'm going to have to see. I got to work on these slides and everything. And part of my problem, folks, and you can see it looks a little bit off, is I am working part-time. So I'm doing the best I can juggling balls. But I always hate when people make excuses for anything. So I'm going to try not to do that. There you go. Past 8 years. This is what we should be spending our money, our time. You heard what the mayor of East Palestine said. Why are we spending billions in Ukraine when we have so many problems at home? And war is so bad for the environment, so bad for the ecology. And the war machine is just going to devastate even further our dying planet. Why are we, again, 240-283-7262, past 8 years, hottest, says 8 warmest, I'm going to go with hottest on record. This is what we should be spending our time and our energy on. All right, one more. Now, this is our feel-good story. I'm going to try to do a feel-good story every day and end with a feel-good story. So we're not just, crying. And I'm going to move myself over a little bit so you can see it. So New York Zoo ends a Flaco the owl. Now, is that not an absolutely beautiful bird? Let me just sort of see if I can get you a better view of this beautiful owl. And I'll get the headline up as well. But this is a Eurasian eagle owl. And you can see his beautiful, and I say he because Flaco is in fact a male owl. Beautiful golden feathers. Flaco was released by, they're calling them vandals, and maybe they're freedom fighters, right? I mean, Flaco was being held or kept or living at the Central Park Zoo. And some folks there were not happy about it. And I don't know whether they really care about Flaco, but they cut through his cage with clippers and released him into the wild. And so there, let me see if you can see the rest of that. New York Zoo ends attempt to release, I'm going to cut myself off, to release Flaco the owl in Central Park. And I am very, very glad that they did that, because Flaco is free now and he's doing really, really well. They were going to try to get him back into the zoo because they were afraid he wouldn't be able to hunt successfully. He had been living in the Central Park Zoo for several years, since he was only 1 year old, and there were concerns he couldn't hunt. There's plenty of food for him, as you can see, lots and lots of rats, 2 million rats in New York City. So Flaco's there in Central Park, and he flies around the park, and he's hunting, and he's doing a heck of a job of it. So I think this is great. I'm glad they're going to leave him there. Now, he faces some risks. The biggest is he'll eat a poison rat. So that is a real concern. There was another owl in Central Park, ate a few years ago, ate a poisoned rat, and didn't kill the owl, but the owl got sick, couldn't fly, fell onto the street, or just landed on a street bordering the park, and then got run over because the owl was sick. I was a boy or female or male owl, but the owl was sick, and as a result, couldn't hunt, couldn't fly, got run over. Terrible story. So hopefully Flaco will not eat a poison rat and then die or get sick and get hurt. That would be terrible. But all that said, obviously Flaco likes being free. He didn't go back. He could have gone back to the park, to the zoo, the Central Park Zoo. He could have. He flies. He's been back to the park zoo, but he hasn't flown towards his cage. He hasn't gone. He knows he could get right back in that cage anytime if he wants to just be given rats. Because what they do is they throw frozen rats into his cage and then he eats them. But this way he gets to hunt live rats. He's good at it. There's lots of them. Here's the one thing I was thinking about poor Flaco is what happens when he gets lonely. Now, apparently, this type of owl, and I don't know if all owls are just the Eurasian eagle owl, is a solitary hunter. I think some of them have maybe they are more in flocks. I'm not sure. They live with their mates. But this owl mates once a year. And then if it's the male, just flies off, and the female lays the egg and takes care of the hatchlings, I believe, which is not the same as a lot of birds. A lot of times the male bird will sit on the eggs too, and the female goes out and hunts for the little babies. But that's not the case with this kind of owl. So this owl isn't going to be real lonely because that's not what their nature is. But that said, come spring, which isn't far off, probably he'll be looking for a mate. And there aren't any, because the Eurasian eagle owl lives in Europe and Asia, lives in the Urals, lives in Russia, actually. So I don't know how Flaco is going to find a mate. And I would like if the Central Park Zoo would consider, and maybe they do have a female owl who's of the same species. Maybe they do. I don't know. Living in the zoo. But if they do, I'd love to see them bring Flaco over. Bring the female over so that she can and Flaco get to know each other, and maybe they'll decide to have eggs, have a family. And if they do, that'd be awesome, because you'd have fewer rats, right? Because every one of those owls eats like at least a rat or two a day. And so the more and they could just infest even Central Park. Now, I don't know, maybe at some point you'd have an owl problem, but I'm thinking better an owl problem than a rat problem. So here's to you, Flaco. Fly free. I hope you get a mate. You won't be able to do it on your own, unfortunately. You're going to need help. And you have a great day. And folks, you listening as well, have a great day. I'm hoping to go live tomorrow on YouTube. That will be the future home of Halitics. Thanks for tuning in, especially you, Peter Casey, for commenting and letting me know. There were some audio issues, but we got them ironed out. Folks, have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.